Welcome to the Longhaul Fitness Podcast. I'm Nick, your host as always, and today I got my boy David DeMesquita with me. How are you, dude?
I'm doing well, man. How about yourself?
I can't complain. It's a good morning so far. Sundays are my only day off the gym, so it's nice to just not be at the gym for a bit.
Yeah, I'm actually the same way. Sundays are always my day off. Actually, John Meadows is the one that embedded that one in me. He 100% had off every single Sunday because of the day of rest and family. And I think that the day of rest and family is extremely important, especially in the sport where we're constantly going, tearing down on a physical level, a mental level, and a spiritual level. We need that more spiritual reset on that Sunday. So I think it's extremely important.
Yeah, and it's like I train people in person still. Like that's mostly what my business is. So like it's Monday to Saturday, and I'm pretty busy that whole week. So I need one day to just not be at the gym and do my own thing. But so anyways, give people a little bit of background of who you are, what you do, and why I've got you on. Give us a reason of the expertise and why I wanted to talk to you today.
Yeah, so it's super interesting how I actually fell into coaching. So I coach full time now. I was in corporate America until November last year. I was actually, everyone asked me what degree I have because everyone thinks I have a medical degree of some sort or I'm an RD with the content that I put out. And it's a lot of self-teaching, a lot of relative experience personally being through a lot of turmoils along the way. I had gut dysbiosis for over 8 years that was diagnosed by 6 different doctors as IBS. I ended up having an ulcer along the way as well when I was eating over 1,000 grams of carbs a day. I was eating actually over 8,000 calories a day at one point in time. That's just how my off seasons go to grow. I have to eat a lot of food. I also had a crazy metabolism. And last year, kind of everything hit the fan when I could only eat 2,000 calories a day. I was eating less than most bikini girls. And I had to treat my gut dysbiosis finally. I had to go down to the root cause and fix things. So from the gut side of it, I have a lot of relative experience. And I was actually going to be stepping out of coaching. And my degree was in IT, so I was doing massive supply chain developments for Fortune 100 companies. So I guess more like a Renaissance man, I was like, I never want to be a one-trick pony and just coach people, right? I wanted to have a well-versed ideology of a lot of different things, so I could theorize, I could put the pieces of the puzzle together. And that's actually what supply chain is operation management at a massive level. And when you're looking at it from a physiological standpoint, you have different pieces of the puzzle, including like lab work, gut, everything like that. And you want to put together a bio-hacked thing for the client. And it's not cookie cutting. There is no such thing as cookie cutting. Even when it comes to drugs, yes, the drugs do what the drugs are going to do. Not everyone needs the same dosage. Not everyone needs a certain drug. Yeah, because you look a certain way on a certain drug, that's cool and all. But what are your labs actually showing? Because a lot of people overdo aromatizer inhibitors in this industry. So things like that are the whys. I need to know the whys. And I did deep dives and I was studying actual clinical research for years and years and years. And I've shadowed doctors and I study under doctors. And that's kind of where I started diving into it. And even when I was in corporate America, I was still shadowing under a doctor who is brilliant. I just got kind of lucky not lucky. Luck is something that we work to create, so I don't believe in the whole word luck. It's like, oh, you're lucky that you're with your wife. No, we acted that into existence because the law of attraction is going to bring the right people in.
Sure.
What brought me back into coaching at the end of 2020 was there was actually a professional bikini athlete, and 5 weeks out, she was having severe gut issues. There were some things that were wrong, and let's just say I fixed those. And then on the gut piece of it, on the pharmacology side, some things were just off completely, and I had to fix that. I had to treat her gut going into the show, and she actually ended up taking 3rd place in 5-week prep with me.
Nice.
What came with that is about 20 different women. I went from almost all male clients because I was just doing it on the side for fun, and I was more doing life mentorship. About 20 different women came to me, and they all had hormone dysfunction. They all came from being damaged in the bodybuilding world, unfortunately, poor coaching. And I just stay in my lane when it comes to that. I just make sure to take care of people that need help. And I went from 3 to 5 clients because I was whittling away. I was about 15 to 20 clients to about 25 clients within a month period of time. And they were all severe medical cases. And I was treating medical cases, and I got really good athletes out of it. And that's what brought me back into the bodybuilding space. And I realized there was just a need for healing people. And the focus on longevity is something that is almost dead and gone. And we can scream at the top of our lungs there is a study actually on monkeys, and I'm just going to do this, and we'll segue into the longevity and bodybuilding, how it is. You can scream as loud as you want, but until you breach a 3% margin that actually truly believes and acts upon it, it will never happen. And this study on monkeys was this one little monkey accidentally dropped his potato, is on an island, dropped his potato into the salt water, and then he ate it. And every single day, he started going out to the salt water and dipping his potato in and eating it. So it was like a potato chip, right? And then after a little while, he was exiled from the community. What ended up happening is another monkey was like, why does he keep going down to the salt water? He goes down to the salt water, and they start dipping it in every day. Then someone else takes notice that these two are doing it. Next thing you know, once it breaks a 3% threshold, all these monkeys, it went from 3% up to 20-something%, and then it was exponential. So it takes a 3% populace of actually literally acting upon it, not saying it, but acting upon it, before the threshold is breached where it makes a change. And this comes true in society.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing because, the name of my LLC is the Longhaul Fitness, and from the get-go, like, my idea was like I want to teach people how to do fitness as long as they possibly can. And now that like I've gotten further into this, like now that is shifted from just broad term fitness to bodybuilding, right? So it's like I want to show bodybuilders how to be able to do this, and then when they're 60 and 70, they're not like frail individuals who are basically living on life support trying to get by. And so far, like I've kind of stayed in the conversation of training and how we can make training better so that we can keep our bodies moving better and function better so we can present things better, right? But the reason I wanted to bring you on is because you do have that background with the gut stuff and the overall hormones and things like that. And the thing I want to circle back to right quick is like this stuff is so important to females and their resilience and those, like, whatever word you want to put in there is a lot less than men. So when it comes down to like what you said with the shitty coaching, what happens is what seems to happen is these guys who don't know what they're talking about get a bunch of male clients and they're just throwing stuff at people. And males, we tend to respond like it's pretty hard for the most part to fuck someone up, like a man. Like in the long term, you might fuck them up, but like if you throw a bunch of drugs at them at one time in the beginning, they're going to handle it really well. They're going to make crazy progress, and then the issues will come down the road. And if you take that same perspective and apply it to women, and you try to do the same thing, you end up with a lot of issues where like now their estrogen is out of control, their testosterone's out of control, their thyroid's fucked up, like all these different things. Like I'm actually currently dealing with a master's client whose kidney and thyroid is all jacked up because of a previous coach, and I picked her up while she was in a prep. It was an unfortunate circumstance to where I picked her up, but I'm happy to have her now. But trying to make sure that like this is going to be her last prep. She wants to be done after this, wants to get it all over with and just become healthy after this. But right now the task is let's get your thyroid functioning and working, and then let's try to get as much water off of you as you can while your kidneys are still giving us problems. So like her body's been fighting us a little bit, and it's like, how do I do that without making the already damaged kidney like more damaged, right? So it now becomes much more of a hassle, whereas if I have someone for a longer period of time, I'm able to do things in a correct manner so that these issues don't pop up, right? So first off, I think we can just kind of get into what we're already talking about here with the differences between men and women with the resilience and like what you've seen with that, because it sounds like you have quite a few female clients.
Yeah, I'm probably about a 50-50 split right now. In fact, most of my males are super high-level athletes, and a lot of these women, all my women have crazy potential, even at amateur level. So I really took most of these women on because of hormone dysfunctions to some degree, or even damaging, or the pharmacology that was being thrown at them, which the pharmacology piece is getting more and more dangerous. And I just want to come out publicly. If the coach throws Tren, Dianabol, Anadrol, these are all drugs that I'm seeing thrown at women. Those three drugs in particular, halotestin, pretty much anything that ends in a draw, that you need to run. Like you need to run very, very fast. because they will viralize you in one shot. And when you're viralized from a drug like that, you're done. Like, it's over. And you're talking about the short-term ramifications. They are long-term ramifications. A lot of the damage that you do to a woman is permanent.
Right.
On a hormonal standpoint, you can fix things. On a physical standpoint, if you physically change, you cannot usually fix things. In fact, some of these HRT clinics, whoever owns them and whoever the doctor that decides a script and it goes on their way and they get paid for it, need to go to jail, because 40 milligrams of testosterone turns a woman into a man. In fact, 30 milligrams is the start, and then they titrate up. 40 milligrams is usually where they stay, of turning a woman into a man in a transgender populace. And sometimes they take it to 50 milligrams depending on what they need to. So take that in perspective for what it's worth, and look at what is being prescribed in the bodybuilding world.
It's insane.
Dosages are higher than that. So I just want to come out openly and just talk about that is the medical use of testosterone turning a woman into a man.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
A lot of people don't. But that's one part of the process, right? There's a few different moving pieces there as well.
Right, and there's huge benefit to females needing testosterone if they need it, right? And it's a matter of how much, because I have a client who went to my hormone guy not that long ago, and like she needs like the cream, like typically it goes with cream over injectables and things like that. But it's like it's such a minuscule dose that it's like that's all they need. They don't need these crazy amounts of things. And the one that actually ended up messing up this client that I'm speaking about is Winstrol, and like had somebody pushing Winstrol on her, and I'm like, what in the hell, man? Like, what in the world? And it's not her fault. She doesn't know. She's listening to the person that she thought would be the one to help her, right? And now we're after the fact playing this game of catch up where it's like, okay, let's get you to the best you've been, but I'm going to keep your kidneys in mind, because if we start to have issues there and it starts to get worse, I'm not going to let you get on stage. So
so Winstrol is probably the most prevalent drug right now that's being overused with women. Now, Winstrol actually medically can be used with women, by the way. It can. And the dosage is 10 milligrams a week. In fact, and more, the dose is 10 milligrams a week. So we see even bikini athletes going up to 30 milligrams a week, or 30 milligrams a day. It wasn't a week, it was a day. 30 milligrams a day. And I'm like, this is because your androgen receptors, you've been taking testosterone derivatives for so long that your androgen receptors have upregulated so much that now you're having to take more and more drugs. That doesn't mean that you don't virilize less. You virilize just as much at that dose, and people forget that. So take a break, reset, and jump back in. Go for it. But Winstrol virilizes women extremely quickly, and 10 milligrams will virilize a woman depending on how long you've been on it, because it's talking overall androgen load. So the load increases over time. It builds. People forget this. It builds over time. With women, I have seen doctors, very intelligent doctors, prescribe 10 milligrams a week for 2 weeks. And I think that's plenty of time. If you're going for an actual physiology look, like your actual physical appearance, sure. 2 weeks, 10 milligrams, fine. 8 to 12 weeks on Winstrol, you're done. Like, that's it. That's it. Like, if your clitoris enlarges, you're done. So, and the virilization on the vocal cords is very prevalent very, very quickly when it comes to Winstrol as well. It's usually where we see the virilization happen is vocal cord changes. I've seen 10 milligrams on a very healthy woman change. Well, actually, it wasn't. Their labs were bad, and they were warned ahead of time, you shouldn't take any type of androgens. 10 milligrams of Anavar completely change your vocal cords. And people are like, how many drugs did you take to do that? That was a medical dose of Anavar, and it was coming from a clinic, and it virilized them because they had no hormones, so the body just hypercompensated. I believe it's a hypercompensation, and I've seen it with women very frequently where there's this hypercompensation if they're on anti-androgen, such as like a spirulactone, and then they all of a sudden going on a cycle. It's like this just way overshot. It's like way shoots over the moon, and people
they really underestimate how powerful things are, right? And I think that's prevalent. It's definitely prevalent in men, because you hear some of the dosages of Tren, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And then the problem becomes is that the people who don't know the difference between, okay, men can handle this, women can handle this. And then they take the same perspective, like even if they still stick to a realm of products that women can take that don't mess them up, like they aren't putting them on Trin, they aren't putting them on Winstrol, they aren't putting them on D-ball, but they're still giving them compounds to take. They're still giving them dosages that are too large, right? And then like the physical ramifications, that is what it is. Like you can deal with the physical ramification. I'm more focused on like, how do we keep like the kidney from shutting down, the liver from shutting down, their heart from stopping? Like these are the things that I'm more worried about. So like the extrapolation of people going from like, oh, this guy could take all this stuff, let's see how much we can push on this girl. And I think honestly, it comes down to like I'm going to say it's stupidity, to be completely honest. Like, because the problem is that people don't know how to handle nutrition. People don't know how to handle training. The only thing they know how to handle that they know gets results is drugs. So they push drugs on people to make up for the fact that they're not training them right, and they're not giving them the proper nutrition as well. Because the thing I've noticed with a lot of men and definitely women is just the starvation. It's like, look, I understand that there needs to come a point where calories are going to be excessively low for a lot of people, and excessive meaning relative to the person. But like, it doesn't need to be when you're 9-10 weeks out and you're eating egg whites and fucking broccoli every day. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Doing an hour and a half, 2 hours of cardio and looking at an apple for your calories for the day is also a great way to mess up your hormone profile, as well as a whole other cascade of things. So it's like, not only are they messing people up by giving them the drugs at wrong dosages, they're also messing them up with a lack of the nutrition and the training that can lead to even more dysfunction versus just like a clit enlarging, you know?
That's actually the worst thing, is the metabolic dysfunction piece. And I'm just going to categorize hormones and metabolic dysfunction, all kind of gets categorized in one lump sum into metabolic dysfunction. Sure. Depending on how many years this has been going on for, most people are pretty loyal to their coaches, and they think that this is the way that they're supposed to do things, but they have no nutritional knowledge. It doesn't mean that you have to be with someone that's an RD by any means, but having fruit in your diet and prep is brilliant. Why? Because it's high in antioxidants. There's also benefits to vitamin C. Shoot, vitamin C helps with collagen uptake, which is practically an anabolic pathway. Like you're taking more protein at that point. So it helps with it helps with bile just in general. So it helps with digestion. So fruit, you don't even see in people with bodybuilding diets. You don't see vegetables in their diet unless they're starving, and then they're like, oh yeah, here's some veggies. You know, literally, like they just use it as filler food, and that's not true. You need fiber in a diet. Now, I think people overdo their fiber. Another thing that you're alluding to is kidneys, right? So kidneys, usually, I see terrible diuretic protocols. And I'm just going to talk about pharmacology just for like a really brief piece. Taking pharmaceutical diuretics can scar your kidneys in one shot. It doesn't mean that your kidneys are going to completely shut down. But if you continually damage your kidneys and scar your kidneys don't really regenerate all that well. You're eventually going to, I'm not going to scare people and say you're going to be on dialysis, but nonetheless, you're going to have to take things to upregulate. You may rely on diuretics at some point in time just to circulate kidneys. And when your kidneys get damaged, it affects your heart. You can eventually get heart disease and other things that come with it. The kidneys filter your blood. So that's another piece that we see. And I see some crazy everything. I see crazier thing with women with diuretic protocol than I do with men, which makes no sense. They're smaller. There's less water that they're holding anyways. In fact, if you have a bikini athlete or if you're a wellness athlete, you're just going to flatten their glutes out anyways by pulling water out. So maybe a little minute amount, but I mean, I have
the thing I'll say is, like, look, I am not the person that knows everything. I'm just going to put that out there, right? But I'm well aware of when somebody is overcompensating for the fact that they don't know what they're talking about whatsoever when I see protocols, right? So it's like diuretics, like all of those things. And the more I talk to people that are getting on stage, like if they have done their homework and they're actually lean, guess how many of them actually needed a diuretic to begin with?
0.
Yeah. So, like, the problem, again, the root cause of it is just stupidity, right? You don't know what you're doing when it comes to telling someone how to train, right? And we both know that more than just joint and aches and pains can come from poor training. You can really fuck somebody up by having them overtrain. There's a cascade of effects on hormones there. Let alone, like, that's the easiest portion of this. Like, the training is honestly not that hard. Like, we all look at training different. We all have a different lens. We all have a different way we like to program. But where we differentiate is like 10%, 5%. Most of everything we do is train hard and do it in a manner that allows us to do it for a longer period of time, right? So people just look at the train hard portion and then they just train hard. They just do everything and hope it works. They're just fucking throwing stuff at the wall and hope it sticks, right? And then on top of that, you add in these coaches who are doing the nutrition as well. And it's like, you don't even have a grasp of the the training. How am I supposed to trust you with the nutrition? And again, like you said, it comes down to like, people are like, oh, the way you get lean is fish and asparagus and egg whites. And then you look at an apple later on the day and then we're going to murder you on the stairs. It's like, you've got this completely wrong. So to think that the people who can't even get the two most basic things right are going to get the drug part right is insane. Right. And it's the things that we can fix quickly, like hormone profiles, like quickly, obviously, like that part is the least of our concerns, to be completely honest. It might take somebody a long ass time to get their thyroid to fully function again. Right. But you know what's never going to recover? Your kidneys, right? You've got, like, they're not going to come back if you damage them. And especially in the day and age that we live in now, where it's like people are so chronically prepping, where it's like, if they're not prepping, they don't know what to do with themselves. They're like Ricky Bobby. They're like, I don't know what to do with my hands, because they haven't learned how to not function in prep. And I think people get addicted to a feeling that's in prep. Like, I think you can attest to this as well. There's a sweet spot in prep, right?
Yep.
Where your mind is perfect, the strength is still really good, you're still getting good pumps, you're starting to lean out, you're super motivated, everything feels great, and I think people get addicted to that few weeks, right? And then when they get in their preps, that's kind of where they stay. So not only is that the root cause of them like prepping all the time and not allowing their body to get healthy and rest, but it is also why people aren't coming in condition anymore, right? Because you cannot stay in that sweet spot and get conditioned to the point that you need to be competitive these days. Like, even at the local, like, we've both seen the local level, and the local level is all over the place, right? Sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's terrible. But I believe if people would just, like, not only push themselves when they do decide to prep, but also push themselves to take time off, a lot of these things with the hormone dysfunction, gut problems, and then not coming in condition would start to alleviate themselves.
I actually am going to allude to the national level. I've been at 2 national shows now, and I'd probably say, like, when I'm talking to a judge and they say condition was bad at this show, and I've never heard a judge ever say that, and we're at the same shows as each other, and I just go, you're absolutely right. And that's a national level. Don't get me wrong. There are some of the national level competitors, the ones that are going pro, they look phenomenal.
Of course.
They're peeled out and stuff like that. Like, you have to be peeled out if you're going pro. And something like, usually these top 3 are peeled out. I would say junior USAs, when I competed, there was better conditioning overall as a whole, at least in classic, right? As a whole, than junior nationals, which I was very surprised. I was very, very surprised. Now, there was one guy that was at junior USAs that was pretty peeled out at junior USAs, and then he went to junior nationals, and he was like inside and out, and I was like, that's impressive. And he missed a pro card by 1 position. He looked really good, like peeled out.
That's awesome.
Either way, so I think that, like, you're absolutely right. They do get used to this comfort zone, and you gotta suffer. I mean, if you're not struggling to pick up 30 pounds, you're not stage ready. I'm sorry, like, picking up a 45 plate should feel like you're picking up a 100-pound plate, which if you've ever tried to grab a 100-pound plate, they're super difficult to hold. That's how it feels with a 45-pound plate. And I've been in preps, like with John, right? I had to have him put on the weight for me because I couldn't lift it up above, like, halfway up my body, because I would get winded.
Dude, even trying to pick up your foot. Like, fuck the plates. Trying to move your legs during that time is a struggle.
I couldn't get up off the couch. So you want to go back into nutrition, right? Nutrition.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever you want to go with. Yeah.
So let's go into women and preps, okay? Because we were alluding to women and preps. The most common thing that I see with women and preps is, oh, I don't have a menstrual cycle. That's okay. No, that's not okay. I've had one woman ever skip a menstrual cycle and they still spotted, right? And this was like maybe a week out from the show, and they actually end up winning the overall show. Either way, it is not healthy. It is not good. It is not normal to miss a menstrual cycle. Jessica Miller, my bikini pro, she didn't miss one menstrual cycle, and she was peeled out and competed at 6 different shows over a 2.5-month period of time. Like, so she was already on stage for 2.5 months and didn't miss a menstrual cycle. And she's like, I wish that this thing, no, and it's funny. And she's like, I wish this would go away. But at the end of the day, I'm like, you're staying so sharp and so lean and so conditioned because you have a menstrual cycle. Menstrual cycles are phenomenal for muscle building. They're also phenomenal. The one reason why women can handle a heavier stress load in a shorter period of time, and why I believe that they grow lean tissue so well with a menstrual cycle, is due to the fact that they have elevated estrogen levels. You look at any study on any animals, when they're trying to build as much muscle mass as they possibly can, they're getting a steroid, a testosterone of some sort, whether it's tren or equipoise or whatever it is, combined with estrogen. Estrogen is an amazing muscle builder, and I think people forget that these are being used on animals, and this is how they're using it on animals for the most part. So estrogen, and then we're talking about the follicular phase there, where their estrogen levels are higher, and then they ovulate, and then they're going into their luteal phase after that, and when they go into their luteal phase, their progesterone levels start to rise. Well, guess why these athletes are staying leaner? Progesterone is an energy metabolism hormone. So you're talking about now you're burning more calories in your luteal phase, so you're getting killing two birds with one stone, essentially. Actually, like if you want to look at the estrogen and then the progesterone, it's like two amazing hormones that you're taking advantage of that these women that don't have menstrual cycles are not able to take advantage of. And that means that if you're not on hormone replacement therapy, then you're not getting the progesterone. And by the way, just for you women out there, if you guys are listening, if you're on testosterone replacement therapy, you also need to be on progesterone too, because what will happen is your progesterone levels aren't going to get high enough because you're down-regulating your hypothalamus pituitary axis. So your pituitary axis basically starts to down-regulate, and you do not produce enough progesterone to usually shed your uterine walls. If your uterine walls get too thick, it will lead to other issues down the road. One of them could potentially be even cancer, and I'm not trying to fear-monger you guys, but you need to make sure that you're actually shedding those uterine walls. That's one reason why when you go to a gynecologist, they'll usually do an ultrasound to see how your actual vaginal walls are doing. That's one piece of the puzzle, right? There's other pieces. They're looking for cysts and other things like that, which PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is becoming more prevalent in the sport because of the high stress load on the bodies, and they become insulin resistant. And next thing you know, they're starting to build cysts in their ovaries because of the constant secretion of insulin.
I'll be sure to tag this as David says you're going to get cancer. But the funniest part of like all of these things to me is when people believe that they're smarter than the human body, right? Like our bodies were designed to function in a certain way, right? Like we can for sure manipulate that. But at the end of the day, the body's going to do what it needs to survive, because that's what we were created to do. We were not created to get on a bodybuilding stage. We were created to survive and procreate, right? Like those are the two things that we were literally designed to do. So once we start to get away from those things and start to try and trick those, like the body's going to fight you tooth and nail, and you might get away with it for a short period of time. But like you said, why would we want to work against the body when the body is giving us exactly what we need anyway? So those were some things I didn't know at all there. So that's 100% a great reason why I wanted to have you on here, because I knew you had a better grasp on all those things. But so now, aside from the hormone stuff, what things do you see in both men and women, like overall health-wise, that are being impacted the hardest by these decisions that coaches are making with drugs, with training, with everything?
I'll go to just a lab work perspective. I think cholesterol profiles are heavily being skewed, a lot of it from pharmacology too, but the hard dieting and stuff like that. Sex hormones definitely are being downregulated. Like I'm seeing thyroid. So on males, where most males in the sport, if they're doing any type of cycling or anything, they're on testosterone replacement therapy, but it still downregulates your sex hormones. What people don't understand is that it still downregulates your thyroid as well. So thyroid is the fastest recovering hormone in the human body. They have studies where after 50 years, their thyroids are covered in 2 weeks. Now, doesn't mean that it's optimal. So I'm seeing very poor thyroid levels, especially like if we're just talking about active metabolism T3 levels being in the low 2s, very common in males and females. So metabolic dysfunction, metabolic damage is very, very prevalent within the sport. Hair loss, even in women, this is usually due to hypothyroidism, which is alluding to the same thing that I just said. And a doctor is just going to say, here's a blend, and you don't need probably artificial thyroid. The most common thing that's happening that a lot of this is stemming back to is the high stress response. One, OCD and PTSD-like personalities are leading to issues with dopamine in the brain and this sense of well-being. That's why you're saying they're getting addicted to being a feel-good in prep. That's right. Dopamine. Dopamine is the most addicting thing to the human body. Blue lights we're constantly exposed to. All this stuff affects sleep patterns, and then on top of the sleep patterns, we see insulin resistance issues. And when we have insulin resistance issues, and we're having cortisol spikes in the nighttime due to our dopamine and our brains not active, our neurotransmitters not being able to produce the things that we need to, like serotonin. Serotonin, 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So when your hormones downregulate, and this is a very, very common occurrence, and I see it mainly in women, and when aromatizer inhibitors are added into women and they crash their estrogen, even males when they crash their estrogen, I'm seeing a correlation between that and actually the issues in the gut that lead up to it. And small intestinal bacterial overgrowth is very, very, very common within this industry right now. People are not getting the proper nutrients just on a normal daily basis, their diets, and their guts are suffering from it. But their hormones, when their hormones are off, I'm seeing a very strong correlation between their guts being off as well. If you don't fix the gut, you can't fix the brain, because eventually the gut's going to continue getting damaged and you can suffer things like leaky gut. So I think that the circadian rhythm piece is a huge piece of it because of the adrenals. The adrenals just get thrown off. And usually almost every prep, if you're getting actually stage lean, like truly stage lean, where you have a chance for a pro card or you're a pro and you're doing well at your shows, most likely your adrenals are off. When your adrenals go off, it's a cascading effect downwards. And the adrenals are actually located in the kidneys. So those are probably the most common things, but the most common thing that's not being talked about is gut health. That's why a lot of people reach out to me, is actually gut health more than anything else. The hormones being off, which is usually related to stress responses in the adrenals. And then that feel good. Like, people constantly want that feel good, and they're not feeling good anymore, so they constantly start drinking caffeine, and they just make the situation worse. And then their neurotransmitters are shocked. Yeah, they're drinking 1,000 milligrams of caffeine a day. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a supersetting water and Bang together, you know?
I mean, I was going to say that honestly, one of the biggest causes of the adrenal issues is just how much we drink caffeine, like how much is just available. Like, I've since just started sticking to coffee for a long time, but like even coffee can be abused at a certain point. Like, just regular black coffee, like when I'm having 5, 6, 7 cups, it's like, okay, we've got a problem now, you know. And we wonder, it's like, why can't I function anymore? Because we fried our adrenals. Then you add all the other stuff on top of it, of a prep, and it's like, no wonder you feel like ass by the end, when you're not even conditioned, right? It's like there's a difference between like, my body's not functioning well, so I feel like ass, or I'm lean as shit, so I feel like ass. Like, in the scope of a prep, like, we kind of need the latter there. We kind of need, you're going to feel like ass regardless, but we would rather you be lean than not functioning right and struggling to get lean and still feeling like ass. And I feel like so many people are stuck in that first one of like, everything's not functioning well enough for us to get lean, and we're trying to force you to get lean by not listening to the body, which it circles back to all these other things we said before. Like, it's not, so many people are quick to point the finger at drugs. And yes, drugs are 100% a problem because there's so many people who don't know how to do them. Like, again, I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm not saying I know how to do all these things. I'm not saying that I'm perfect with it, but you can also fuck somebody up with training and nutrition, right? Like it's not just that third thing of the drugs. It is all three can be compounded together, right? And if your training and your nutrition are so terrible that it's driving stress is the ultimate factor to everything. Like to almost every stress is the underlying factor to almost every major disease there is. Like all-cause mortality, like stress is a thing there, right? It might not always be the highest on whatever it is we're looking at, but it's usually pretty high up there. You stress your body out, it's going to tell you to go fuck yourself at some point, and that go fuck yourself might be heart disease, it might be cancer, it might be whatever, right? And yeah, I completely lost my train of thought there, but I'll let you riff on something like I'm just tired of people blaming drugs alone. It's like, no, you can severely damage someone with bad training. You can also severely damage someone with bad nutrition. If you got both of them together, the drugs are not helping, but it's not the only cause here, right?
I couldn't agree more. A lot of natural, I'll get a question very commonly. What blood panel do you recommend for natural athletes? My answer is the same drug panel, the same blood panel that a non-natural athlete should be doing. And the reason why is bodybuilding, even sports at a high level and an extreme level, you're living in extreme constantly, you don't know where your hormones are. You don't know the actual internal dialogue and what's going on until you actually get numbers back. And the other question is, how commonly do you recommend getting lab work? And lab work, to me, minimum needs to be once a year, even for a natural athlete. For an unnatural athlete, you're talking 3-4 times a year. Don't be scared to run a panel of labs when you're on a cycle. Get the numbers. See how your body's actually responding. Everyone freaks out about gynecomastia and stuff like that. It's not caused just from estrogen. It can be caused from prolactin also. So look at a well-balanced diet. I love Blue Zone dieting and I love Asian dieting. I do a blend of both, where you're getting a Mediterranean with an Asian blend. Most of the Blue Zones in the world are located there. And for those of you out there that don't know what a Blue Zone is, Blue Zone are the people that live the longest in the world. Cancer-free, essentially. Almost 100% cancer-free. It's insane. And these people live towards over 100 plus years old as like almost an average. They're like late 90s is probably the average of like where they live. And males don't live as long as females. One of the reasons why we don't live as long is you're talking about heart disease. If we lived in a perfect world, our hearts would give out at 150 years old because it is a muscle. So when we're carrying around heavier weight, guess what? The heart's working harder. That's why bigger dogs pass away sooner than smaller dogs. It just less stress on the heart. And if you just look at the biological level of who we are, what we are, you need to take it back to root foundations. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You can always optimize. Even me, that I know a lot. I definitely don't know everything. I know a lot about a lot, but it's not that I know everything, and people can go more granular than me. But sometimes it's about keeping it stupid simple. Take a step back, eat a well-balanced diet, train smart, enjoy your training. If you don't enjoy your training, you're not going to perform well. If you don't enjoy your food, you're not going to stick to diet. So even in prep, you can have a well-balanced diet until you're like not eating a lot of food, which the majority of us have to do. Right. And that's ultimately, I think, the point that you're trying to construe right here is just enjoy what you're doing, because eventually in a prep, you don't really, you might enjoy it. Some people really do enjoy the suffering. I've been through a lot of hardships in my life. So going in through that suffering and that trauma, it makes me, it's like the phoenix where you burn yourself down to the ground and you have a stronger foundation structure to build upon. Some people are addicted to that and addicted to that pain. So understanding what is fiction from reality, or like fictional from reality, is very important. And don't make harsh decisions. Don't make harsh decisions when you're in prep. Like breaking up with a significant other or splitting something off with a family member, stuff like that, because those are the people that are the only people that are going to be with you when all that clout's gone, all that high energy. Oh my gosh, you're going to go pro, or oh, you look so awesome because you're looking cool. You know, those people just fade out, and you're left with no one afterwards if you just cut all the important people out of your life.
Right, and like the point that you made of like people enjoying that what's the word I'm looking for? That journey, right? Like that's the whole reason I do this. That's the whole reason I started bodybuilding to begin with, or like why I started enjoying it, is because like, look, I am not going to turn pro, and there's multiple reasons why I'm not going to turn pro. I don't care. I really don't like it. I've never been like, oh, pro card hungry. But the thing about bodybuilding that I love that has helped me is that it, like you said, it puts you to the test, and there is no greater test than bodybuilding to me, because it is a solo endeavor. No one's going to help you. No one can do the work for you. You have to do it yourself. You can have a support group. I like Christina. There's no way I would have been able to do this last prep without her. Like, she's such a help to me. But at the end of the day, she didn't do the cardio for me. She didn't do the training for me. She didn't do all those things. She didn't live in my head and stop me from being anxious, right? It's like I had to learn to fight those things myself and get through it myself. And that's honestly why I enjoy bodybuilding so much. But another point that you said in there that I wanted to touch on as well is like making things simple. There is the climate of the fitness industry, and especially in the bodybuilding world now, is to overcomplicate very simple ideas, right? And the overcomplication seems to come from an idea of trying to perfect something, right? And I think in the process of trying to perfect things, you can kind of fuck up a lot of things too, right? Because just because it's perfect on paper, and I've said this in the last 3 podcasts, it's funny how these things keep linking back up, but it can be perfect on paper, but for that person, it's terrible, right? And there needs to be a large consideration to those things as well, like just an enjoyment factor. Maybe that person doesn't like this perfect thing you've set up, and then they're not going to put in any work, right? And at the end of the day, work is what we need. We have to work. Like that is the ultimate litmus test to bodybuilding, is like, can you work harder? Can you work harder when you think you're gonna die? Like, and you're not going to do that if you don't enjoy it.
No, so I was going to allude to the reps and reserve thing that's going around. Like it's everything's reps and reserve. I'm like, you guys, the wheel has already been invented. It is rolling perfectly fine. You got to work hard and make sure you don't get injured. Now, don't get me wrong. I like RPE scale a little bit better, and it actually has to do with the standpoint of how the brain thinks that, oh, I only have this many reps in the tank, so you actually hold yourself back, versus my intensity level is this. So it's the same exact thing. It literally, reps in reserve and RPE scale is the same exact thing. And ultimately, it comes down to working. So I assume that you're alluding to that. And I also think that it's very important to realize when we're super physiological, those studies haven't been done on super physiological people. So that's and I'm not going to jump into the training piece because you do that with everyone else. But that's, I think, where you're alluding to. Like the wheel has already been invented.
It definitely, that's part of it. But I feel like there's a little bit of that to kind of all considerations with coaching, right? Where it's like, this is the only way we can do this, and it's like, that's such a terrible way to look at this thing. Like, bodybuilding in and of itself is a beautiful thing because it can be done a million different ways, and none of them are completely right. They're only right within context. You're only correct within context, because as soon as we pop out of that context and I try to take this thing to this person over here, now we're fucked up. Now we've got a problem, right? Because it's like, look, you cannot deny that Branch Warren and Ronnie Coleman fucking killed bodybuilding. Like, not killed, but I said that wrong, but they did amazing. They both crushed it on stage is what I'm trying to say. They both have amazing accolades behind them. But guess what? If you tried to apply that shit to me, I'm going to break in half and I'm going to be in a wheelchair. Like it's not going to work. So, but at the same time, I can't dismiss that. I can't dismiss that there is something there to what those guys did and how they did it, right? Is it going to work for me? No. Is it going to work for most of my clients? Probably also no. But it worked for them and they found what worked for them. So like trying to take people and fit them
into a box,
into your way of looking at things is ridiculous. And that's why I've been speaking with so many different people that have such a different perspective than I do with this stuff. Because if I pigeonhole myself listening to the same people, I'm going to end up in the same thing of going, this is the only way to do this. It's like, that's insane. It's like, there's multiple ways to structure a training program. There's multiple ways to structure a nutrition program. And there's a million ways to structure a drug protocol, right? Like, you can mess with those things, and everybody wants to make it sound like they have the secret ingredient to whatever it is they're doing, but they don't. That's the problem. There is no secret ingredient. It is literally what we've said in the beginning. You work hard and you structure it appropriately so we can do this for a long period of time. And that it all has to fit within the context of the individual.
I'll interlude this into the holistic world and the functional world of health, because that's why you have me on here in the first place.
Yeah.
There are courses out there, and there are people out there teaching people how to heal people, right? And it is their way, their opinion, their relative experience. When they're teaching in groups, they're teaching every person the same exact way, and it's very cookie cut. I can't tell you how many outliers there are within getting someone healthy. I'm not going to say 50% of cases are outliers. I'd probably say 20 to 25% have completely different approaches to get to the same route. That's 25%. That's a large margin of people that I heal. A large margin. That's no longer even an outlier at that point. Outliers are supposed to be like in the 1 percentile, 2 percentile kind of thing, maybe 3 percentile. Like it's a very small percentage of the populace is an outlier. And what in bodybuilding, and I was invited to do a study with Bill Campbell, and it was a survey. And I actually messaged Bill, and I'm like, I actually am not going to do the survey because you're trying to put people into a box. I was like, unfortunately, this sport and healing people and going based off of data, you can't put this into a box because there is so much bio-individuality to it. It's that 10% margin, you know, that like 90% of people are biologically the same, and then you have that 10%. When you're going into extreme conditions, it's, from what I've seen, different circumstances. So trying to teach someone how to heal someone is great. Like that's ultimately what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to put out enough information, at least to arm people to know that Western medicine isn't always the way. There's a lot of Eastern medicine that you can do, like natural herbal medicine, that can get you to the same results. But I think there's also a good blend and a happy medium between Western medicine and herbal medication and a blended approach to get you to that, or even symptomatically treat the symptoms to make the person feel better while you're treating the root cause. And I think that that's the beauty of it, is that there's a million different ways to get to one location, especially in the health world. Where I have an issue with it is when you're paying for these courses, which I love. Like, I want people to continue to pay to continually educate themselves. I still do it to this day. When you're getting taught something and you regurgitate that information, you copy and paste the information, there's a lot of copying and pasting that's going on. And it seems like the people are knowledgeable, but if you have a conversation with them, they can't dumb it down. If you can't speak to someone on the street about what you're talking about, you do not know what you're talking about. Yep. I'm sorry. Yeah, like, if I start talking about, like, oh yeah, it's affecting your hypothalamus pituitary axis, well, you know who's going to listen to that? No one. No one knows what that is. No one even knows that that's a portion of the brain on the street, you know? Yep. But if I could say, hey, you're stressed out and it's affecting your brain, or your testicles or your ovaries are not signaling to your brain well to produce hormones that you're seeing on your labs right now that your doctor is saying if they're not good, I'm going to prescribe you X, Y, and Z, that makes sense to someone. If you can't explain it to someone in general layman's terms is actually the terminology, layman's terms, you don't know what you're talking about. And when you see all this complexity getting posted online and these canvas where you're scrolling side by side and you're reading, oh, the thyroid does this. One, they could be copying and pasting from Google. Two, they have no relative experience. They paid for a course and they're copying and pasting what they learned from someone else. And three, the supplement that they're being listed may be a company that they actually own and that they're making money off of. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, because some of these people have created these companies because there's a missing link in the industry for sure. But it's not just one company or this and that.
Right.
It's take what people need, or that's why, like, again, the Western medicine approach and the Eastern, like the herbal medication, when you take that blended approach, some people cannot function. So how are you going to make them function? Western medicine. But if you're a functional guru, you're not going to give them that Western medicine, because that's not your way of doing things. That's incorrect. There's a million different ways. Make someone feel better so you can at least, like, one, you're reducing down their stress load, so you're fixing the root cause. If you're making someone feel better, one, they're probably going to stay with you. That's one thing. And then two,
everything's a tool.
Yeah, two, you're gonna fix them eventually,
Yep.
So that's my issue, is that people cookie cut, people copy and paste, and then they can't dumb things down for people to understand, and it makes them seem really smart, but it doesn't. Like people that know what they're doing know that. Yeah.
The analogy that I've used with it when they're using all the big words and the terminology and like trying to make it as overcomplicated as possible is it's a smoke bomb, right? And the smoke bomb works great because you throw it down and you can't tell what's happening. And then the smoke bomb, like, you're sitting there and you're looking around and you're like, somebody's got to help me. And then the same person who threw the smoke bomb down has got their hand out going, hey, come this way, I'll help you. And then what you realize, once they've put that hand out and they pull you out of the smoke bomb, you look around and you go, wait, I'm in the same place I was earlier. This is the same shit as before. Like, it's no different. So it's a smoke bomb to initially get somebody to come in, because it makes them believe that they don't have an understanding of what this person's talking about and that they have a secret key to success, right? Yep. That's what it looks like to me. But to kind of summarize all this stuff and what we've been talking about, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit more before we go, but it seems like the biggest issues that are causing the long-term health problems are, first off, gut, and then second, like, inappropriate uses of different compounds and deployment of those compounds. Does that seem pretty solid?
Yeah, those are the most brute force ways. The pharmacology is more of a brute force mess up.
Right.
But you have people coming from, and I'm just going to say, take it a step back, before the pharmacology was even involved, most of the people in the sport are looking for something to make themselves feel better, to mask whatever that agent was, whether it's emotional abuse, physical abuse, drug abuse, things like that. So you're having these people with some type of addictive personalities, and they're trying to look for a scapegoat, and they come in damaged. Even people that were hypothyroidism and they were diagnosed when they were 12 years old, and they get put on thyroid medication that they never needed because they were a stressed teenager, a stressed hormonal teenager. People have come into the sport damaged, and then they get further damaged, and then they get a brute force pharmacology like, hey, like, you're getting ready for a national show, you need X, Y, and Z. And probably if you're going to turn pro, you need some type of pharmacology involved, unless you're a genetic anomaly, and that's perfectly fine. There are genetic anomalies out there. But at the end of the day, I think that, yes, pharmacology is a brute force into the darkness, unfortunately.
Right.
And nothing, as long as it's deployed properly, I think it's okay, but it's not being deployed properly 98% of the time.
Yeah, the pharmacology becomes like a masking agent for the issues, until the issues can no longer be masked by pharmacology, right? Because it's like you end up reaching this upper limit of how much you can take, to where you'll end up in a territory where you're really going to fuck yourself up if you're trying to cover up the dysfunction. And I feel like so many people are, because of improper training and improper nutrition, are using pharmacology to make up for it, right? And it shows, just like what, like you talked about, people are pretty loyal. They stay with the same person for a long time in this industry. Like, once they've made a connection to someone, they want to stay with them, right? And because those coaches don't have a full understanding of how they can better train somebody and how they can better diet somebody, and keeping that diet like higher calorie for a longer period of time, and not forcing preps on them constantly, and not even a lot. Like, I'm not even going to say forcing, because most of these people are just asking for it. Like, they want to prep every year. It's like, let's take a little bit of time, because if we can work on getting the body in a healthy position without trying to brute force it with pharmacology, we can have a better leg to stand on when it comes to prep time. If your body functions and it's happy, it's going to be more receptive of all these other things. And then we don't have to brute force stuff. We can be more conservative with what we deploy, right? Maybe not in every circumstance. Maybe some people still need a hard push with that kind of thing. But I fully am of the thinking that if the body is happy and functioning the way it needs to in the first place, we can make slight adjustments to where we push ourselves as further than we ever have without having to be dramatic, right? And
Yep.
I feel like the being dramatic is a root cause to all of these health issues that have made this sport such a short thing, right?
Yes.
And I fully understand that, like, even without pushing, there is a limit to this sport where, like, after a certain age, you should probably just stop in anyways, like, even if you don't want to. But we can still make this thing to where when you come out of it on the other side at 35, 40, whatever it is you decide to stop, that you're not now fighting the Grim Reaper, right? Like, you're not trying to just keep him at bay at all costs, and then having these surprise events happen where you're on dialysis, or you had a heart attack, or you had a stroke, or like whatever. Like, I feel like the sooner we start making sure that people have a stronger foundation from the get-go, and not allowing them to do anything until they are ready or until their body's healthy, I think that would help out a lot. I'm not going to say it's going to solve anything, because there's always going to be issues there. But I feel like that is the thing that gets missed, is people don't focus on the base. They have somebody come to them, they want to do a show, immediately, how do we get you there, right? Not, let's see how your body's functioning, see what we can make better, and then push you into the show, right? Because we all know how impatient us bodybuilders are, right? We all want to get on stage. We all want the glory. We all want the trophy. We all want to be shredded right then and there. And it's like, that's not how this works. Like, you are going to have to take time and let your body relax and recover so that it can do all these other things.
Yeah, you need an off season to grow anyway. So
that could be a whole nother topic for us to go down there. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess final point there, and you can add on anything you want, is like, focus on health first. Focus on getting your body as well functioning as possible through proper training and proper nutrition. And then you can start to look into the rabbit hole of the pharmacology side of things, to where you don't have to push so hard. So, like, the drugs become a masking agent for the issues, right? And the issues stem from poor nutrition and poor training to begin with, and just poor body, like, or poor maintenance of our bodies, right? Because we all just we go drinking, we smoke, we do all these different things that do damage to our bodies. So nobody comes into trying to do bodybuilding perfect, right? But how do we make it better so that you can be better for stage? Anything you want to add on there before we head out?
A well-oiled machine will continue to run for a very long period of time. Go into a health phase before you jump into a prep, and don't be put onto a stage just so the coach can market themselves. And that's unfortunately something that I see a lot. I hardly even post my clients. I win plenty of overalls and stuff like that, and I hardly post my clients, to be honest. And it's because at the end of the day, my why is to make people healthier and to help this industry out to the best of my ability. I seriously think I've been given the tools to do so, and I want to continue to do it. And so thanks for having me on, bro. It's been a really fun time. I'm sure we'll be doing this more frequently.
Yeah, we'll have another one. We'll go. We'll get a little bit more specific on one of the next ones and go down more of a rabbit hole there. I just wanted kind of a broad term thing so we could talk about not just the training side of things, even though it's still looped back to that, you know. But we'll for sure do another one. I appreciate you having coming on, man. I actually learned a lot here today, so appreciate you, homie.
Hey, thank you, man.